Hi guys, it's Blackie. Ooh, it's been a hot day. We're getting some rain down here now, so that's helping a lot. And I figure a lot of people are going to be watching the Republican convention right now, so I don't expect a lot of people to show up, and that's fine. I fully understand. In fact, I'll go watch the speech after this is done. I'll just go watch it on the loop. You know, I never really liked watching. Uh, Hello there, fishing golf. How you doing? I never really liked watching things live a lot of times because I always just, I don't know, expected to screw up or something now and then. It's okay when it's on tape, but when you're watching somebody doing it live, it always just kind of puts me on the edge for some reason. I guess I'm weird. Dylan, hello. Twister, hello. Chris Robbins, good evening. Oh, cool. Craig, glad that you got some power back up there. Rhett, good evening. Now, if I should suddenly just disappear, about 2 miles up the road that way, when I was going to get my wife, there's a tree down on the internet line. You know, the lines running along the pole that's got your phone lines, your internet, your that cable lines. There's a tree down on that line. It's taking it all the way to the ground. And a power line, it's all those service lines. So they may be showing up to fix it and suddenly go poof, and I won't have internet, but we shall see. Grey Wolf, good evening. Ronald, good evening. Oh yeah, rack it, put it in the smoker. Craig, 4,000 in your country without power for 2 days. I'm sorry to hear that. Riverbank Viking, hello to Germany. Herbert, hello. Shane, hello. Jeff, hello. Yeah, them storms that rolled through were no joke. And you got a cold front sitting here, and you got a high pressure, and them storms did that and curved around, and it greatly intensified them. And but you're getting the moisture from the Gulf flowing all the way around it. So man, that's a river right there of just pure power. Mopar, good evening. Hello, Justin, you made it. But they're predicting where I'm at for about the next week. We're going to get rain in the afternoon, and that's fantastic. The highs are supposed to be in the high 80s, low 90s. That's fantastic. In fact, today, when you got out of the sun, the air was cool. It was very comfortable. It was very pleasant. As long as you were out of the sun and you had a little bit of a breeze, it was fantastic. Sun still wants to burn you, but you get a little cloud cover. It was nice. Hell, it felt like fall to me. I mean, when I went and picked up the wife, I was sitting there and just enjoying it. And she said, "Why didn't you come on in?" I said, "It was nice out here, you know." Batterella, hello to Oakley Land. Jeff 86 there, yeah. Satchmo, hello there. Yeah, and usually when we have this type of weather pattern, we have a cold, wet winter, you have a hot, really June, and then sometime in July, it starts raining every afternoon, and it keeps our temperature from going too high because it's hot in the morning, muggy as all get out. Then the clouds start to form as the evaporation, all the moisture's coming off the Gulf. It forms a cloud cover. Then it rains, which cools everything off. And then after about a half hour, hour after dark, it quits raining and the cycle starts again. I can live with that. It keeps our highs out of the hundreds, you know. And then that normally goes to like end of August. And then about the time it starts to break up, we get the first cool of the fall. So hell, I'm like hoping. Jeff, you say we don't get that many days hot up here. How far up are you? Jimmy Dunlap, good evening. 2020, good evening. Trina Green, hello. You're in Southwest Missouri. Awesome. Jeff, you're in Newfoundland, Canada. Okay, yeah. Let's hope y'all don't get this kind of heat. Not trying to get on that topic, but hello, Pink. One of the pluses to this is the growing band goes further north, and Canada gets where they can grow more food because the winters don't last as long, and they get a longer growing season, and they can grow a lot of foods that you couldn't grow before. And I'm hearing reports of people in very southern Canada, right close to the American border, that they're talking about they're getting some crops that they wouldn't be able to grow. I have a friend that she came out of South Florida and married a guy and went up there who was in their Canadian military. And she's never been able to get certain like tomatoes and things to grow the way she wants to. And said this year she's got, the last 2 or 3 years, she's got tomatoes to grow reliably and get 2 or 3 yields out of them. So, hey. But 112, hello to stormy Rome, Georgia. Yeah. Oh, cool. Dead Prepper. You've been to Lake Erie for 9 days. Great Lakes, the great inland seas up there. They're interesting, aren't they? Mount Woods Runner. Hello to Montana. Yes, that's like it is here. It'll be in the 90s and the heat index will be 110, 108. It just depends. But I remember years we had heat index 125. So fingers crossed, like I said. Oh, Battle Rattle. Had a hell of a walk last weekend. Fell asleep in the canoe and woke up about 10 miles past where I was supposed to be. Anyone ever have a whoopsie nap like that? Yes, sir. I had a good friend of mine that he was in the river that flows into Mobile Bay. And it got nice. He was just tired. And so he had about 5 hours to kill before he was going to be picked up at his takeout point. And there's no good place to tie up right there, but there was a tree out in the water, with the top sticking up. And so he just tied off to that. He lay down at the bottom of the canoe and he went to sleep. The water and everything. That's in the northern part of the bay. And he said, I felt like I slept 30, 40 minutes. It was actually 6.5 hours he was asleep. And he said, suddenly I hit something like boom, like that. And I woke up and he was hitting the bridge at the bottom of Mobile Bay. He was 12 miles from where he was starting at. The tree he hooked to was floating and he didn't realize it was dragging along the bottom. And so it got in deep water and it just floated on. And so he's lucky he didn't get out there in that bay and some sort of boat or something hit him, But yeah, he had a fun time paddling up against the current. Cow Tipper, hello to Louisiana. Oh, Terry, good. Thanks for the heads up about the Cabela's having percussion caps. Got them last week. Awesome. Glad you got some. Briar Smoke, hello to the Sierras. James Singer, hello to South Carolina. Oh, yeah, Jimmy Dunlap. Missed an exit and had to go way around. Yeah, more than once. 301 and 3010. And when you're coming down, and you're trying to remember it, we didn't have GPS in them days, and it was 301. And when I got there, there's a sign that says 310, and right beside it says 301. The arrow was gone. The arrow said, like, go straight to get to 310 and turn here to get on 301. So I turned on 301. And 50 something miles later, I got into a small town and saw the sign said 301. 50, 100-mile round trip. I was not a happy camper. Stacy, yes, I am going to West Virginia. I plan on being up there for the gather thing in September. Jeff, thank you very much. Yeah, I broke 93,000, and we're slowly getting there. I'm gonna get that 100,000. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Dead Prepper, do you do any big game fishing, Blackie? We tried for walleyes and muskies, but came up short. In the past, I did. I never really cared for offshore fishing. You know, being an hour from the Gulf, you'd think, right? And having friends that had big bay boats and everything, just never cared for it. Big cats. I'm talking 40, 50, 100-pound cats. Yeah, that was a favorite of mine. And so I did enjoy that. I have seen 6 or 7 foot, 300-pound alligator gar in our rivers. I've seen sturgeon before. I've seen sharks in rivers before. So when I was a young man, I loved fishing. I mean, that was I was doing it for the family, but I really got a passion for it there for a long time. And I was in my mid 20s before I kind of, you know, dulled it down a little bit of hunting and fishing. But that was always my escape, was to go to the woods. If it was summertime, we're going fishing. If it's wintertime, we're going hunting. And both of them entail camping. So, I mean, I really enjoyed that type of stuff. But I never really was one of those, I'm looking for a record. Man, it wasn't near me. I was going for the enjoyment of it. I guess when you caught so many to feed the family, and you know that bigger don't taste better, quite often bigger is bitter. And I have the biggest cat I can say I can point to was a 89 or 90 pound. That's what the scale that was of dubious origin said. She was right at like 89 to 90 pounds, a big cat. And I was standing there holding her up under the gills, and her tail was still on the ground. She was that big around. She was huge. That was about the biggest one I can say I ever pulled out, and it was a good fight. I caught bigger than that in saltwater when I did go, but to me, it was always, I just enjoyed I'd rather catch 100 the size of my hand than 5 huge monsters. So, oh no, yes, Gray Wolf, I hear you. Oh yeah, dead prepper. Catfish can be cooked so many ways. I mean, you can make it spicy, you can make it savory, you can bake it, make stews out of it. You know, it is very versatile meat, and I have cooked and ate it many different ways. We used to get a where you go to the aisle in the grocery store and they'll have all the packages of dry rubs and gravy mixes and stuff like that. There used to be, I want to say it was an Italian or something like an Italian dressing mix that you were supposed to add vinegar and oil to and shake it up. We would roll catfish in that dry as a dry rub and then deep fry it. And oh, it had such a wonderful flavor. It was just awesome. And of course, that was something you could carry with you. And one of my favorite pans was a U.S. Army mess kit, that elongated pan. You take your fillets and sit there and put just enough oil in it, get it good and hot, and lay it in there and let it dance so we could lift the pan up real easy. It wasn't real heavy, and keep the temperature right where you want. Bring it down and get a good sear on it and bring it up high in the heat and let it just sit there and slowly bubble. You'd watch the fish pump as the mussels and all, and when all that quit, then you'd gently, like flipping a pancake, flip it over just a second, and it'd be so tender and so juicy. Oh yeah, good stuff. Gabe, have you ever tried shark? Yeah, it's just a big fish, and the tail and the main muscles is pretty good, but a lot of the belly meat and all has got more of a gamey taste to it. And right there at the spine has a real bloody gamey taste as well. That was normally paired off and fed to the dogs or whatever. But as far as the main steak side of it, yeah, it tastes good. It's just a fish. Hello to Thailand. Well, hello, Andrew. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And thank you very much for being on here. Gray Wolf, ever used boomerang rabbit sticks? I've used like the hockey stick uh, rabbit sticks, but never tried the. Well, I threw a boomerang, but never really for hunting. You know, it'll kill. Hello. Yeah. Gray Wolf, get an old pallet. They're made out of oak. Cut the stick out of that. Cut the hockey stick like throwing stick out of that. Because that's what a lot of we kids did. There'd be pallets they're throwing away because heavy pallet, thick oak pallet. We just saw them out with a saw and make looks like a short hockey stick where the head of it, and you'd get the throw. Those will work, and those are out of oak. So live bait is always best. It does the best at attracting. They smell it, they sense it. It's real. It is always about the best choice. Bob, hello to Ohio. True, Satchmo. Yeah, Satchmo. You're exactly right. Catfish is like barbecue. 1,001 ways to fix it. Shane, pickled bass and trout. I have tried some pickled fish. Wasn't a favorite, but hey, I'm Southern. Robbie, hello. I've had friends that went to Alaska and they even got liking stinky heads. But down here, we can use that for bait. I'll get something else to eat with that. Give me that. I'll use it for bait. Yeah, Grey Wolf, exactly. It's very similar to the War Club. Well, hello to Brazil. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, it'll kill. If you'll look around down here, we have a type of tree. It's a bush. It's actually the biggest blueberry bush, and it's a variation of hawthorn, and we call it sparkleberry. If you go do a search in the book of trees, you'll find it under that name. It's got like 8 or 10 names, regional names. You find them a lot in cow pastures, and it's 1,000 little bitty stalks. Once they dry, they are iron, dude. And so that was our favorite thing to cut for rabbit sticks, and we called it tool wood. And you'd cut it and shape it while it's green, and you let it harden, and it don't take long. A couple hours in the sun is good enough. And you can use it for a club, a digging tool, whatever, and a throwing stick for rabbits, etc. So if I had no other weapon and had to make something off the land, it would probably be off one of them trees, because it'd be fairly easy to make something real reliable real quick. Ronald Green, I received my hat on my birthday, the 15th. Really happy with it. Awesome. And by the way, my niece Heather has got more hats in. If you go look at last week's, I believe, maybe the week before, in the description box, I put the contact information for her hats. So y'all can go look that up. It'll be in the same playlist as this, as like last week, but it'll be in the description box. But she has got in, and they are sage green, which is what this was originally, was sage green. So, oh yeah, Battle Route, yeah, out there they got to truck it all the way out there. Oysters in Tulsa was ridiculous, dude. I was, when I was doing military contract, we were doing military radars and weather radars. And of course, I'm going and delivering a radar. I'm driving the truck and delivering it. But the engineers or the whoever, the big muckety mucks, the suits at the company that's buying it, they want to take me out so they can use their business cards to buy a real elaborate meal for them. Really, they're just taking me to dinner. They get to eat. They can write it off because it's a business expense. And so we went in Tulsa to this is back in the 80s. There's a place in Tulsa called the Shore, I believe it was. And the seashore or something like that. And it was seafood. Wow. At the price. I mean, I was getting a dozen oysters down here in my neck of the woods for $3 a dozen. And they were $22 a dozen in that 40 years ago. So, yeah. I mean, they got to truck everything or fly everything out there. Terry, yeah, crankbaits work really, really well. Dead prepper, I do not. We do not have the eels commonly in my waterways down here. I have caught eel before, but it's actually been down at the bays along the coast. But I've eaten eel. I go to the sushi bar, and they barbecue eel pretty good now. But I don't clean and cook anything I'd find down here. It'll kill. Black, you ever heard people freezing fish in a block of ice? Yeah, that's how we used to preserve it. We would take the milk cartons. Remember the old wax cardboard milk cartons? And you would open the top up when you got all the milk out of it and clean the inside real good. And then you would put the fish in there and fill it with water all the way to the top, and then squeeze it closed and take a marker and mark on the outside what kind of fish it was, and it froze it into a solid block. And that'd last a year or two, and all you needed to thaw it out was you take it out, set it in the sink in a pan or something, and take it out around breakfast, and by 2 or 3 in the afternoon it was thawed out and ready to cook. So that's the way my family did it for many, many years. Hiram, good evening. But one tells, South Alabama International Outdoors Club. Yeah. Yeah, freeze bluegill that way. Works well. Yeah, Justin's right. Cornmeal for batter. Coat one side with red pepper, cayenne, and white cornmeal, and deep fry it in peanut butter on lard. We would do that. We would sometimes take egg white, and we would coat the fish a little bit and then put it into cornmeal with a little bit of breadcrumbs in it. When I say breadcrumbs, you'd have them 2 or 3 pieces of bread left in the loaf of bread, and it's got stale. We'd slap them in the toaster, and we'd toast the snot out of them, and then sit there, and Granny'd shave them things between her hands into a plate, make breadcrumbs, and then she'd retoast, and she'd shave until she basically dissolved it down to nothing but breadcrumbs. And then she'd mix that with cornmeal, a little bit of red pepper, a little bit of salt and pepper, I think a little bit of smoked paprika, and a little dash of sage. I believe it was sage, and it might have been oregano, but it was a green herb. And then we would take the fish and pat it dry, put it in just a little bit of egg wash, and then we'd dunk it in that and put it into peanut oil and fry it. That was really good. Hello, Red Sorghum. Good evening. Oh yeah, battle royale. Yeah, trout is a good fighting fish. They're a little bit finicky. They're a little smaller, um, but they are a very good fish. And you're right, it is a different. You just tighten up on the line, and you got to play him, or he will dive. He'll find a way to crack or spit that hook. I have fished for trout in the mountains of Alabama. They imported rainbow trout and stuff and turned them loose in certain secretive places. And I was very blessed to be a good friend with somebody that knew of such a place. And so we went up there with fly rods and picked them up. And they were very nice. They're a lot of fun. I prefer bass and brim just because of where I'm from. They put up a lot more fight, a lot more action, and you can get them out in open water more than you do trout. Trouts need to be running water and someplace kind of narrow. They like a lot of places to hide. They like them insects floating by, And so bass and brim, they just like something to eat. Tiny Titan, good evening. Oh, okay. Well, don't work too hard, but I hope you're having a good evening. 9 pounds, very impressive. And big river, and big lake trout, they got up, Great Lakes and all like that area. Those are big fish. I tell you what shocked me was when I went to Ohio with Dan Lutz, and we went down to what he called the river. Alabama, we'd call this a creek. You anything I can get a running start and probably make it 3/4 way across, I call a creek. And but it was crystal clear, and there was this muskie was about that big around and probably like 4.5 feet long. And when we got up there, he was right there off the bank, and like the depth of this water like 2 feet at the deepest, and there was these carp on the far side. Imagine like a V like that. And what it is this V runs up and dead ends. This V is the main thing. And the cart would be down here, and that muskie would go in behind them and just slowly ease up, kind of like herding, like a herding dog. And they would move until he got them to this point, and then he'd move a little bit faster, and some of them would turn this way, and there'd always be that one or two that'd go up in the thing, and he'd come in there like a lightning bolt, and suddenly, boosh, blood would fly in the air. He done got the one that was pinned up in the shallow. He'd come back. They'd drift down the whole thing. He'd go back behind them, and it'd start all over again. We watched him run like 3 of them up in that hole and eat them. And I asked Dan, I said, "Well, get that?" It's we don't eat those things. Their scales are like razor blades. You can't handle them without gloves. You need all this stuff. It's bull. Give me a damn 22. I'll pop him. you know, gut him. It'd be like an alligator gar. It's just, to me, a muskie is a type like gar, and they got those type of real sharp scales. So yeah, just take a tomahawk, hack in there, and start from the inside and peel him out like an armadillo. But he didn't want to do it. No, I don't want to eat that. Okay. Oh, Grandpa Buckshot. You got one of the matchlock blunderbusses. Cool. 11 Bang Bangs channel had that wheel lock gun. That looked fun. I've spent time around people that were in a historical part that they use matchlocks, and that was okay. Flintlock's better. But watching him, he built that wheel lock from a kit and then was shooting it, and it was a lot more reliable than I thought it'd be, to be honest. So I might have to get me a wheel lock down the line just to play with it. Dead Prepper, I think my buddy hooked into a giant snapping turtle, whatever it was, the rod bent over. There are things out there you'll hook to, and you ain't turning it around. Dead Prepper, anybody into turtle stew? I've eaten it. It ain't my favorite, but I have eaten it. It'll kill. Blackie, do you have any advice on how to deal with a black bear with cubs that seems to try and catch the old lady's pets? The fences isn't keeping them at bay. More than likely, that mama bear is trying to kill them pets to teach the cubs how to kill. He'll catch it, wound it, and then let the cub finish it off. So that's probably what they're doing. I recommend a bigger dog to scare mama away. You know, something barking loud, something like that. Also, oh dang, I can't remember the name of the stuff, but there's some sort of repellent, not the bear spray, but there's some sort of repellent. It's a powder that you can get that bears really don't like it, especially mamas. And I'm not sure of it, but of course, where I live, bears leave us alone, you know. But that's what I'd recommend: a bigger dog put in there to protect that, because she ain't gonna take a big dog. Well, she would, but she's not gonna risk it. She's hunting something small to kill. You see the same thing down here with foxes, where the mother will start raiding the chicken pen and wounding or crippling a chicken and bringing it back out and turning it loose, and it's out there flopping. So the kits, the baby foxes, can kill it. It's trying to teach it how to kill and feed itself. So that's what I'm betting. If she's coming over that fence, that's probably what she's after. Mm-hmm. Yeah, battle rattle. They do have a wonderful taste. Rainbow trout does have a really good taste. Yeah, Stacy, I've heard of that too. Using baby ducks, wound them. Um, I have had a buddy that they ran chicken houses, and they'd have the baby chickens that they'd come in and put 30,000 in the chicken pen, and he'd have one that got his eyes pecked out, he's blind, or a wing got tore off, or whatever, and he'd use them for catfish bait because they would, he's just recycling them as far as he's concerned. So if it was dead, it worked. If it was live, it worked. So I wasn't a big fan of it, but I understand. Stephen Ladrain, good evening. Will Rowell, how does a dog lock rifle musket work? Dog lock, the dog meant there was a latch. There's no half cock notch. And so you brought the lock up and you put the little latch in. It's a sliding thing on the back of the lock, kind of like an old door screen hook, and you'd hook the hammer. It's designed so when you pull it to full cock, that dog falls off, and then it would go. See, but it only has full cock and that latch, so it was a safety. So if it's a dog, means that safety, and so that's what it's talking about. Gray Wolf, correct. That a decent piece of pyrite and it'll spin and fire. Red sorghum, Campbell soup, turtle soup. Go, you're going way back now. I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever had it by Campbell's, but I've heard of it. They used to make duck soup too. They made goose, turtle, duck, and I want to say some sort of salmon soup at one point, way back when, that I've heard of. Okay, she got a pit bull already. Yeah. Will Rowell, Will. Hippie chick in Northern California was attacked by a smallish black bear while out hiking, and her English mastiff killed it. A young bear, once he's been kicked away from mama will kind of keep him around for up to a year, but after that, she kind of loses him. Well, he's got to live on his own. If he didn't learn real well how to hunt for himself, he'll start taking on dogs, cats, livestock, easy things. Us, you know, because he really isn't good at hunting. And that's what that sounds like. Because if it's going after a woman and a dog, that bear's hungry. He's desperate enough to try it. Gerard, what would you recommend for a 357 Bear Defense cartridge? Thank you for all you do. 357 Bear cartridge, I would look something like a if you're going with if you're going with factory load, something like a 125 hollow point would probably be good. Go for the vitals. If you're going with your own cast, get a 158 grain semi-cast wad cutter because it'll punch the maximum size hole and penetrate the deepest. And so in that it'll do the most damage. But that's where I would go with it. Stephen Ladring, I need to know if I can get one of the new haversacks that you got. I know that the price shows. Send it to, if you, Stephen, just if you still got my address, send me another money order and make sure it's a Walmart money order. That's the problem. The local banks don't want to cash any money order except a Walmart money order for some reason. And the last time I got a money order that wasn't a Walmart, it took me 4 weeks to get that thing cashed. So other than that, just send it, put it on it, and I'll put you in the next run. Tim Pierce, good evening. Woo. Make sure I get a little air. Battle Rattle is correct. Jared, 158 grain gold dot would be a real good one as well. Okay, you're very true. Gray Wolf, but you're up there in Alaska with the big bears. I should have asked that of where he's at and what size bear. Is he talking about the 150-pound black bear in Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, or is he talking about the 500-pounders up there with you, or the 1,000-pound grizzlies? Yeah, 125 be too light; it won't penetrate deep enough then. So thank you for pointing that out. Bill Hines, good evening. Something I pointed out to Dakota. He was saying which was a better choice for hunting deer, 150 or 170 grain in a 308. I said 150. He said, why not the 170? I said, because it's the same bullet, but the 170's got the thicker jacket. And our whitetails are small. 150 pounds, that's a pretty good size one. 200 pounds, wow. But I've seen 110 pounders too. And if you use the 170, it may penetrate all the way through before it has time to open up. The jacket is thicker. That's how they add that extra weight, see? And so with the 170, I'm shooting elk, moose, things like that, where I got to penetrate 36 inches of meat to get to something really vital. Whereas our whitetails are only that thick across from one side to the other. And so the lighter bullet will open up faster than the heavier bullet. It'll kill, yeah. a 22 long rifle, right place. The world record grizzly out of Alaska for many years. That was a huge one. Was killed by, I think it was a 10-year-old Inuit girl with a single shot 22 long rifle. She shot it straight down the ear, cut the brain stem, and he hit the ground dead. The hide squared to over 12 feet. It made back in the 60s, made newspapers all over Alaska. The headline was, "She pulled the trigger, God guided the bullet." Okay, Stephen, cool. Terry, 308 is overkill for whitetails. It can be. Down here in my woods where it's so thick, 243 is a good choice. 223 can be a good choice if you can shoot and place the bullet, because our deer aren't that big, and if you can put a good one into the vitals, you can hit the spine, you can hit the head, you can turn him off pretty easy with one of those. But unfortunately, we're Americans and we like to burn, blind, and deafen them. So I don't know. When I was doing my gunsmithing, how many people were bringing me 300 Winchester Magnums, 7mm Magnum? They wanted to pull the trigger and scorch out a hole in the tree of the leaves, leaving them flaming, broadside from a 16-inch battleship to shoot a 120-pound deer. So. What do you think about the 8.6 blackout? I haven't heard about that one. True, Stacy. 3030 will take care of business anywhere. That was the deer cartridge, and bears and everything else have been taken with the 3030. The thing is, placement. That was the big thing. Like I've spoke about on this channel several times. The guy that was the lead writer for Rifle Magazine and Hand Loader, he talked about in Hand Loader Mag about the number one 223 caliber gun in Alaska was not the AR-15, it was a Mini 14. And he said, and this was back in the early 90s, I think, was that magazine article. And he was saying that they called it the cook's gun. Because he said, because it seems like every hunting camp's got one for the cook. And somebody fired back, "I don't think much of the 223 caliber, especially for bears or big game, blah, 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 blah." And he responded to him and said, "You're right. One is not sufficient. But have you ever seen a scared cook with a 40-round magazine? One won't stop him. I bet 40 of them will." This ain't a sport. Grizzly's trying to come in the back of the cabin door. "We're not here for sports, son. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You can keep it on target and keep yanking that trigger. I bet 30 or 40 of them sure will." Yeah, Gray Wolf, I know exactly what you're talking about. We have that sometimes in real heavy places down here, a big hog, where you're likely to come around the corner and have 5, 6, 700-pound hog with 10-inch tusk, and he's upset. I would rather have an anchor. I'm not here for sport. I'm trying to find the missing kid in these woods, whatever. I want that 12-gauge slug, pop him, Jeff, good evening. Oh yeah, Grandpa Buckshot, 3855. That was the parent cartridge that led to the 3030, and really good caliber. I used to load for a Remington rolling block in 3855 for a good friend of mine. And I had a Winchester in 3855, a 94. And the 375 big bore was just a 3855 modernized and changed the case a little bit so you could put hotter loads in it because they were scared you had granddaddy's old antique. But good cartridge. Yes, Shane. It's a two-sided thing. We're great the bears and all and big predators coming back, but at the same time, and the fact we don't hunt. The people today don't hunt. The average person don't hunt. So the animals are not necessarily afraid of us because we're not culling them as much, as hunters. And so they're not as afraid as they were in the past of seeing and smelling a human. So that's good for hunters, and they'll come walking out in the broad daylight. I've seen several hunting videos of people down here in North Florida, just south of me, that were in a deer stand, and a black bear just come running out of the woods, grabbed the tree, and climbed the deer stand up to right here. He's looking at the guy. I mean, the guy's sitting there like this with his damn phone, and the bear is like less than 2 foot from him, looking at him. And then it shinnied back down the tree and went on out in the woods. I guess it was just curious. What are you? We had a guy attacked north of Mobile 3 or 4 years, 5 10 years ago now. It's been a while. And the bear came up the tree and got him in a deer stand. But the bear had like a dozen 22 caliber bullets in him. And it looks like the guy tried to shoot the bear with a 22 from over the top. And then the bear got pissed and come up the tree at him. He had a 30-06. I guess he decided he didn't want to shoot it with a 30-06. But eventually the bear did die, in the encounter. But the guy had to come out there and get him and take him to the ER. He was pretty messed up, but the bear got a hold of him. It'll kill. Blackie, how would a Dragoon fully loaded with powder compare to a Colt conversion cylinder? Well, I've demonstrated on camera that my Dragoon fully loaded is firing a 200 grain conical at over 1,000 feet per second across chronograph. I think I did like 1,140 feet per second out of that. And that's a 220 grain conical. That's nothing to sneeze at, So you can hunt deer and stuff with it up close, Washburn Billy, hello there. Oh, okay, Gabe, 8.6 blackout. They're putting a big bore into the case. Okay. I haven't seen any reports on it. And the 300 blackout was never meant to be a long range hunting gun. It was meant to be a police sniper gun in cities. Why they didn't just say 7.6239? Because that was the ballistics they were going for. But they took the 223 case and blowed it out to a straight wall case and made the 300 blackout out of it. And a big heavy bullet out of a limited capacity case. And then you're talking about a Creedmoor case that's been turned into a bigger, fatter bullet. Sounds like a 7mm bullet, the big 7mm Magnum bullet stuck into a Creedmoor. And what was that other caliber? 35 lean, which is a 30-30, but it's been opened up and a 35 Remington's been put in it, There are advantages and disadvantages to using the bigger, heavier bullet. Um, if it's got the velocity, you got the penetration. If you don't have the velocity, you got a bigger slap initially, but not the penetration. So it's you know, oh, Washburn Billy. Sorry to hear that. 45-degree angle. Dang. Well, hello there, Bear. Bear's in the house. Chef, hello to Vienna. Thank you for tuning in. Gray Wolf, I can believe it. Because when that cartridge first came out, what I was seeing them and hearing them talking about it was it being used in a bolt action by SWAT teams in cities to not have the overpenetration problem of the 308, but have more weight and hit than the 223. And that was the 300 blackout. And then they figured out you could put it into an AR platform, and you're trying to do 7.6239 and not say you're doing 7.6239. It just, the performance is 300 Savage is what it really they're duplicating. Just like when they brought out the 40 cal and hailed it as the greatest firearm in the world. Everybody get rid of your 357s and your 45s and your 9. Everybody needs to get a 40 cal. And you go figure out that a 40 cal duplicates 3840 Colt, which was obsolete 100 years ago. Same bullet, same weight, same velocity. And in fact, Ruger, for a while, there was a company that was getting Ruger to make 2 cylinders that you could shoot 40 caliber and then change cylinders and shoot 3840 in it. So they were just duplicating it. Chef RG, how are you, Blackie? How's life treating you? So we're doing okay. Heat, and that's about it down here. We're holding our breath, waiting for the good old, fall to get here so I can get back in the woods and get back to camping and not overheat so easy. Washburn Billy. All right. It'll kill. Blackie, what causes bullets to tumble in some cartridges and not in others? Like how 30-06 can handle light and heavy bullets, and most of the 30 cals are married to the either heavy or light bullets. One of the things you got to remember in that is bore, thrust, pressure, escaping gas, bloom. All of those can affect it. If the bullet has a longer longitudinal base, like a 30-06, than say like a 300 Savage, which is the same diameter, and even the same weight, but shorter in overall length, it will be more stable. That's what makes a 6.5 or 5.5 Creedmoor so stable, is because it's an unusually long, thin bullet. You're getting longitudinal axis like an arrow out of it. And so that gives the 30-06 a better chance at stabilization. Whereas if you've got rifling for a gun and you put too short a bullet in it, like for example, I put 30 carbine bullet into a 30-06 case, it tumbles because it's not matching the rifling. The rifling set up for that longer bullet. And I put this short stubby bullet in it and it spins it. But the problem is it just does like that when it comes out and it's tumbling. It doesn't stabilize it. Putting too long a bullet, and that's the problem you get with the ARs, that if you have an AR platform that was set up for 50 or 55 grain bullets and you put the 62s in there, your accuracy isn't that good because that bullet is longer and heavier, and the rifling is not stabilizing it. And it's like spin on a football. If you spin a football too fast, it wobbles in the air. If you spin it too slow, it'll tumble end over end in the air. Pitch, spin. You get all kinds of complicated stuff into it. A given bullet and the rifling, spin, pitch, thrust, velocity, bloom, all of the above. There's a lot of factors in it. But the easiest way to understand it is if you take a football and you go to throw it and you make it spin more than you're trying to make it go forward, you're trying to make it spin faster than the air, it will not go as far. If you try to just throw that as hard as you can, don't put a lot of spin in it, it'll tumble. Same with a bullet coming out of a gun. How much twist versus how much thrust. That's about as lame of an excuse as I can give you without getting out chalkboard and us playing, connect the dots. Well, Stacy, thank you very much for coming in. Have a good night. Yes, correct, Gray Wolf. That's the reason they did it. They blew out so they didn't have to change the barrel or change the bolt face. You could use standard bolts. There was a time there, very limited time, you could get the AR platform in 7.6239, but there was it just didn't catch on, and it had to have a special bolt, and it had to have a different barrel, not only with the rifling, but the gas tube connection, gas block had to be different because there's different pressures. And I think that was a big thing. Everybody wanted to shoot that time. The very, very cheap 7.6239 brass was like, the steel cases were running like $4 a box for 20 rounds back in them days. The problem with that is they varied a little bit more than our guns. And so that direct gas of the AR platform didn't do real well with it, where the AK uses that piston to slap it. And so the 7.62 just didn't take off in it that well, Washburn Billy, Blackie, what would you recommend for foot care in a certain situation? Say when you have fungus or whatever. Apple cider vinegar is very good for that. And I have also used a soak of red oak bark. Make a tea out of it and soak your feet. It's going to stain your feet. You're going to look like you've got suntan. But it will attack and kill the fungus. And also UV. A lot of people don't think about that. I've had friends have told me about going to the pedicure place, and they use a UV light to harden the epoxy, nail polish. He's gone in there and said, just put the light on me for 30 minutes. And so he sits there and they put the light on him, and UV light will kill that fungus. Very few things live well in UV light. And that UV light is strong enough, it'll penetrate in. It doesn't hurt us, but it's strong enough, it will penetrate in there and help do it. So I would recommend either using baking soda soaks, apple cider vinegar soaks. You're doing something primitive, you use red oak bark, make a tea and a tincture and do that. And third is either use the UV light at your local place or go look at the UV light that goes into an aquarium and try that and see if that don't help knock it down. Good night, Stephen. Sleep well. Battle Rattle, yeah, some companies still make them, but I haven't seen an AR-62x39 without problems. That's the thing. Back then, they were trying to take advantage of that super cheap ammo. That ammo isn't super cheap anymore. It ain't available. There is no advantage. The 223.556 is a cheaper way to go now than the 7.6239s. And so it's one of those things where it came and it, you know, like when they came out with all the short mags, and that was a big marketing push, so we can put it into a short action gun. And so it's a 270 short mag, it's 308 short mag, 243 short mag. You find those a lot at the beginning of the hunting season down here in my south, where the gun's a really nice gun and it's only $200. It's because the box of ammo is about $45 to $50. And if you're not a hand loader, yeah, you can buy 4 boxes of ammo and buy the gun again. And so guys will get them, and then they'll figure out real quick, dadgum, the ammo this is like 4 times more expensive than the full size 270 or 243 or whatever, which I can get anywhere. And I got a custom order of the dang short mags. I'll just get rid of it, and they'll be back in the pawn shop the beginning of next hunting season because they'll go get them a full size one. So they rotate around because they just didn't work out economically. And if you're a hand loader, of course, you can do what you want. It's the same components. It's just a different case, different die, and slightly less powder. Other than that, you're going to be the same. Yep, correct. It's how to make saltpeter, make gunpowder. 50 caliber Beowulf. I have heard of it. Randy Johnson, hello. Okay, well, that does make sense, battle rattle. Yeah, when you're doing that way, of course, it'll kill. Hello there. Good friend of mine, he's got a little bit of money, and so what him and his friends do is they pool their money, and then they make a big ammo purchase at a time, and you can do that from ammunition factories. And so he wanted 10,000 rounds of 9 millimeter ball ammo, and it's literally a pallet with a box sitting on it, and it's just 10,000 rounds in the box. There's no divide up. And so him and his friends pooled the money and then ordered it, and it was delivered by a truck, like an 18-wheeler. And so he goes to the place, and they take it with a forklift and put it in the back of the truck because this box weighs a couple 100 pounds. And then they get back to his place, and they get beer and stuff on a Saturday night, and everybody takes a container of some kind, either old boxes they're recycling or bags or whatever, and they count the ammo out. And so you paid for 1,000, 2,000 rounds, and you paid for 1,500 rounds, and you paid for this. And everybody starts doing their things like you'd be shelling peas or butter beans, pulling them out and stacking them up. And then when they get done, everybody should have the amount because they got it on a piece of paper to make sure, that you paid for 2,000 rounds. Why have you got 2,500? And he's short some. So everybody, they do it. So everybody's fair, everybody's over the top, and they all do it together to make sure that nobody got a little extra, you know. But they would do that. They'd order 10,000 rounds with the barrels, sealed up barrel, like a 55-gallon drum of 5.56, because it's significantly cheaper, and it's the same hazard charge. It's just a lot less packaging. So, Paul, what about the 303 Brit? What are your thoughts? Good gun, good caliber, plenty of ammunition available, plenty of reloading sources available for it. I know it's still very, very popular up in Canada and stuff like that. I've owned several 303 Brits and have shot them, hunted, took deer with them. They'll do anything a 308 will do. And its power level is somewhere around the 308. I've heard people say it's in the 30-06. I haven't found that. I have found that the 30-06 is just a little bit hotter. Not a lot. I mean, it's not like night and day, but it really is. But the 303 can be a very good hunting gun. And the old Lee Enfields and stuff, really good hunting actions. There was a pawn shop down here years ago that me and a friend walked into and looking at military surplus, and he saw this gun sitting there, and it looked like, well, it looked like a Lee Enfield that had been sporterized. Somebody had redone the stock, right, and it had bare barrel coming up, and it had the box magazine and etc. in it. And so he got to it first. He picked it up and he looked at it. I wasn't going to crowd in on him. And he put it back on the rack. And I said, "You're not interested in that?" He said, "I don't know." So I picked it up and I looked at it and I realized what I was holding. I put it back down. I gave him the first go for it. Finally, when he had selected something else, I said, "You're not going to go for the Lee Enfield?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay, then I'm going to get the Lee Enfield." And so I took the Lee Enfield. I went up the counter and the guy wanted $180 for it. And I paid him for it. And we got back out in the car. We're leaving. And because we'd do gun runs around all the little gun shops about once every other month in those days. And so my friend Micah said, "Okay, what did I miss? It looks like a standard, somebody sporterized a $60 Lee Enfield." I said, "You would think that. But I took the time to read the barrel. And the barrel said Holland and Holland. This was like an early 1900s when they were buying the Enfield actions from Enfield and turning them into hunting sporting rifles. This was a $3,200 sporting rifle. It was a super rare collectible from Holland and Holland. And it was 180 something bucks. He passed it up because it thought it was a sporterized. Because that's what I thought until I picked it up and I read the barrel, and then I knew what I was holding. You know, sometimes you get lucky like that. Okay, let me catch back up. If you're loading 45 Colt black powder, you must fear the airspace, some sort of like cornmeal. And would it be dangerous to do compressed load of black powder? No. Fill the case all the way to the top if you like, and you can compress it. It works better if you do compress it. When I say compress it, load it in there 40-something grains, and then you want to compress it down about the thickness of a nickel. That much is enough, okay? And it will burn much cleaner and more reliably that way. Blackie, have you ever lived in North Alabama around the southern end of the Appalachians? Do you prefer the coastal area better? I have never lived up there. I've always lived down here in the coastal plains area. I thought many times about moving up there because I deeply love the mountains. And I don't care nothing about the beach and the water. I'm wanting the mountains. But I was in love with this gal, and she lived down here, and I lived down here. And so she didn't want to move up there, so I stayed down here. But yeah, if I had the time to pick up right now and move wherever, it would probably be North Alabama in the mountains or into Tennessee. More likely North Alabama in the mountains. Gray Wolf, yes, the compression. In fact, that's thing. I cut apart a couple of originals, and they were compressed, but they were loaded in two different steps. The powder was put in the case, and then that was compressed down to a depth where the bullet could seat. If you don't do that, and you just go and fill the case up with the 40 grain to put the bullet on, and you go to compress it, you'll just deform the bullet. So Colt did it in two steps as well. That's the reason there was a paper card between the two, because they had a rammer, so the cartridge would come up and a sleeve, the cartridge would go up in. And they would put the cardboard on and they would ram it. And that's how they compressed the powder down to the proper depth. And then they seated the bullet on top of it. If you do that, you can get 40 in there and they shoot very consistently. That's the secret to loading 45 Colt or 4440 and all of that, like they were originally with black powder. It's a compressed load. So was the 303 Brit originally when it was a black powder round. Um, I've seen one of those cut open, and it was a solid cake. I mean, I'm solid. When they got done compressing it. Excuse me. Yeah, 338 Win Mag ammo. That's going to be a challenge. Just about a hand load only position. Will Roundell, what's the heaviest 4440 bullet you've ever loaded? 240 grain, 427 ball, like goes into a 44 Magnum, loaded with, don't quote me on this was a long time ago, 9.5 grains of unique. And the weakness is the brass. You'll get about 4 or 5 loads out of that. And in the brass, you get a white ring around it, and you got to throw the brass away. Brass is too thin. I have fire formed 45 Colt to make it into 4440 before, because it's a thicker case, and then heavy loaded those to go into a 92 Winchester in 4440, because there was a 4440 express load, but it was only for the 92 Winchesters, and it duplicates anything a 44 Magnum do. That was the hottest load I ever shot regularly. Well, I used it for a hunting load, I should say. Oh yeah, the 41 Long Colt. That's a rework of the case. Are you talking about the 41 Long Colt, Justin, or the 41 Special? The 41 Special was invented by the gunsmith that worked for Hank Williams Jr., who's a big shooter. He loves his cap balls. He loves his single action arms. Big collector, loves to shoot them. And he had a guy, a gunsmith up there in Montana, that he set up in his own gunsmith shop, because Hank Williams had his own ranch out there. And the name of that gunsmith shop was Deadly Nostalgia. And him and Mike Ventrino and all imported this guy right out of gunsmithing school to work there and just work on guns. And so he wanted him to take a Ruger single 6 22, bore it out. What's the biggest caliber you could make in that? So he bored and re-rifled the barrel, and the biggest he could do and make it fit to have 5 shots was a 41 Magnum brass cut down short, and he used 44 Special loading data and called it the 41 Special, and it went into that little bitty single 6. I bet that would have been fun. He had ivory grips on it. I bet that'd be a fun gun to pull the trigger on. Gerard, thank you very much. Washburn Billy, what's your favorite meal to make? Creamed taters, not mashed potatoes, creamed taters, where they've been turned, where they're just above a soup. They're soft, but they're cream mashed potatoes, brown gravy, a ham steak that is about a half-inch thick, put into a pan, a cast iron pan, and seared. Then once it's about halfway done, you add water to it and let it sit there and kind of steam boil in that. Okay. Better yet, add a little bit of red eye gravy, but coffee will work well with it. Then I want black-eyed pea, excuse me, I want white field peas and small butter beans, the young tender ones, mixed together, cooked with a little bit of fatback pork. Then I want homemade rolls. And for dessert, I want peach dump with a little bit of extra butter and a little bit of sugar and a little bit of brown sugar on top when you put it on the table. with sweet tea. That's my favorite meal. Oh yeah, okay. I'm sorry, Justin. The 41 long colt in your 18. Have you lost that load information I gave you again? I have given you that load information like 4 times. I'm gonna have it tattooed. We're gonna get you drunk. I'm getting it tattooed on your arm. Yeah, I saw that, Travis. They made a solid slug. It's a 10 gauge brass with a 10 gauge slug in it, but they made it like a cartridge gun. Yeah, pretty nice. Pink, yes, I have. I used to collect cartridges, and I have seen and fired some old original World War One cordite loaded 303. It is weird, and will eat up a barrel. My God, I'd rather shoot black powder in it. Well, Chef RGJ, thank you very much. I'm glad to do it. You're the reason I'm here. Really are. It'll kill. Blackie, have you ever played with an 8 gauge? I have held an 8 gauge. I have fired an 8 gauge. I have sighted in an 8 gauge with slugs before. They're illegal to hunt with, but I have fired and shot, etc. An old antique. It's a whop. It really is. Well, Chef, thank you very much for your support. Really. Andy, good evening in South Georgia. No, Justin, you don't need to worry about compressing that load. The 41 long colt used a hollow base bullet for that reason. So you don't have to compress it. Just, I would say about black powder, put about 35 grains in it, and then put a little thin, uh, like take a soda drink box and cut a wad out and drop that on top and seat the bullet on top. And you should be fine from that. Yeah, Grey Wolf. Nitro spaghetti. Yeah. I've even fired a gun with gun cotton before. So, yeah, 505 Jeffrey. Yeah. The kickingest gun, literally. And I have shot 10 gauge double barrels. I've shot 8 gauge. I've shot, oh my God, 458s. I've shot a 50 caliber Barnett. I've shot a lot of big bad ones. The kickingest, most punishing gun was 416 Remington. Oh my God. It is the most violent kick. I don't care you got a pad on it. I don't care you're holding it tight and you're bracing it. It hurts all the way down your arm, your leg. You won't get more than 2 shots out of it, and your hand will be vibrating from the impact of your shoulder. 416 is just brutal when you pull the trigger. It's just way out there. Travis, I've heard all the way of a 2 gauge, but I have, again, it was a punt gun. It's really artillery. It's not, it looked like a sewer pipe aiming out there. So, Heather, good night. Yeah, they were the old big old market guns, punt guns, etc. When you go to the Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, or what was Fort Benning, Georgia, and you go up on the second floor of the museum, and they got all kinds of World War One, World War Two stuff. They've got a bolt action anti tank which was, I think, a 40 millimeter. It looks like a big Mauser scaled up with a tripod, a bipod on the front of it, and this big old stock. And it had a reputation of breaking the shoulder of the man that pulled the trigger on it. There was no recoil system or nothing on it. And it's like this 40 cal shell about that big. And it was an anti-tank round. And it was said that they used prisoners, that you would be sentenced to carry that gun and have to shoot it, because you had to be close enough within a couple hundred yards. I think they said the effective range was 300 yards of a tank. And it really didn't want to penetrate till you were within 100 yards. And so we didn't understand penetration armor, rounds, etc. yet. World War I, it's something they were forcing in. And it was said that it quite often broke the shoulder of the man that pulled the trigger. Collarbone break, something like that. And they got that big old gun on display. Yeah, Terry, the Kentucky Ballistics did that one, M1 Grand and 458. There was a guy back in the 90s out of Ohio. I want to say his name was Green or something like that, or Grindle, something like that. And he was doing some things. He took an AR platform and made a 405 that went into it. He would take an M1 Garand and an M14 and mix and match parts and turned into a 458. So it still used a box magazine, but it used a 30-06 action length, and he had to put synthetic stocks on them because it kept breaking the stocks. He made a 45 Winchester Magnum M1 carbine that he just bored all out and etc. That was the biggest thing he could stuff in it. And he said that usually the original stocks, wooden stocks, wouldn't hold up, they'd split. And so he had the Ram line synthetic stocks he'd put on the guns. But he made some hot, big, badass stuff. Somewhere in my collection of gun articles and stuff, I've got that writing about it. And somebody's saying, is he brilliant or is he nuts? You know, because he was doing like a 458 Winchester mag in a semi-automatic action. So, Common Sense Karen, thank you very much for letting me know, and thank you for listening. Tim Pierce, something like that. Well, there was a boy's gun in World War II that was a British gun, but I think there was something like a Bowles gun that was also an anti-tank. Turtle D, I always end up hungry when I leave here. Well, hey, you know. Now, let me go ahead because we're an hour and 25 minutes in. Just in case you didn't see my video the other day. My schedule is in September. I'm going to the Gather thing in West Virginia. I'll be attending that. I may be teaching. I don't know yet. They said if they need me, I'll volunteer to teach something. We'll see. The first weekend of October is North Georgia at Blairsville. We're doing the Silver Wolf classes there. Then everybody's asking if I'm doing a camp out this fall. That will be the 18th, 19th, 20th at Geneva State Forest Lake. I will go out and camp for those 3 days there. Anybody wants to show up, come on. It is not an official gathering. It's just a hangout. And I know Ken and them from South Georgia are thinking about. Several people are coming. You know, Pink, if you're available then, brother, come on. And Steve Kingsbury, come on. It'll be the beginning of fall, and we'll be able to get out there and enjoy it a little bit. That's, like I said, October 18th, 19th, 20th. Then 1st of November, I go to the Georgia Bushcraft event. Then in December, I'm going down to Florida near Ocala to the Rewild gathering down there. And I'll be teaching a couple classes at that. And then I'm talking with JJ and them with the Fuel the Fire, the possibility of either in January or February, somewhere in there, about doing a winter class, probably up there in North Georgia where we're going to hold the Silver Wolves. We got so many people saying, look, I'm not a Silver Wolf, but I'd love to come take classes from you. So we're talking about possibly doing classes at that, and it'll be a winter focused. We'll have like a split idea of like survival, what to do in the winter when you don't have gear, making emergency shelters, fires, etc. And then also camping in winter, tips and tricks for staying warm and staying comfortable in the winter. We'll split those up like that. And then in either late March or the very first week of April, remember, we've got from the middle of March to the middle of April. In those 4 weeks is where I normally put my spring gathering. And then I believe the next Silver Wolves official class will be in May. We haven't announced it yet, but in May. So that's running me around the clock. And so that ought to give y'all at least an idea of where I'm going to be. Big E's Knives. Hello. Got my tongue tied around my eye teeth. Couldn't see what I was saying there. It'll kill. Advice on a thumb hole stock. Laminate is the way to go. When you start making all those curves and everything, it's very hard to have a piece of wood unless you spend a lot for old growth walnut or something like that, to have a piece of wood that ain't going to crack. So that's where laminate really comes in. The laminate eliminates that problem. They take those super thin layers and build it together. And so you've got the look and feel of wood, but it's really more epoxy than anything, and therefore it doesn't crack as easy. So any kind of big old thumb hole stock, go with a laminate. You'll be a whole lot better. Will, favorite Pop-Tart flavor? Chocolate frosted or strawberry frosted? Washburn Billy, absolutely. 30-06 is a do-all workhorse. You can load it up, load it down. You know, it'll take anything on North American continent with the right bullet and the right placement. You know, I cut my teeth on a 30-06. Still love a 30-06. And I played with all the other calibers too. I've had a 7mm. I've had a 300. I've had a bunch of 270s, 243s, 308s, blah, 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 all the above. I keep coming back to 30-06. In my mind, that's the big game gun, is a 30-06. Turtle D, good night. Shane Lawson, at what age is considered a silver wolf? We haven't set it out like that. It's the focus of the silver wolf school, so to speak, is really geared toward the over 50 crowd. But having said that, we've had 20-something-year-old students before because they wanted to spend time with their grandfathers or their dad, and they were coming to learn from us to better help their dads or grandfathers in the field. And so there is no age requirement, but that's what we're talking about. Maybe start doing a couple of times a year, having a non-Silver Wolf school and having a bank of classes where it isn't necessarily for people like that go, hey, I'm 45, can I come? We'll do a basics class. You know, this one that we're talking about is going to be a winter survival class, a winter camping class. And then later on, we'll do a basics class. You know, you don't know nothing, you want to start from scratch. We'll deal with shelter building, fire, basic cooking, basic setups. You know, etc. And then we'll do a more advanced class where we'll teach navigation and stuff like that. I've got a team of instructors now that's got the ability. Now it's just we got to dial in what you guys want to learn and when you want to learn it, and we'll go from there. So we're stay with us, guys. We are developing it. I want to make sure it's something that I feel confident is going to be, honest to God, really good information. So that's what we're going slow, but we're doing the best we can. Yes, Bill, Blackie, are you going to have plenty of hammock camping spots for the Silver Wolves this time? From what I understand of the site, and I've seen pictures of the site, yes, we will have plenty of places for car camping, tent camping, or hammock camping. I'll be hammock camping, so I'm going to be real interested in this. I always prefer hammocks, so. Travis McKnight, the 30-06 the best, the P17 made by Winchester for infield was in 303. Negative. That was the P14. The P14 was in 303. The P17 was from the ground up, chambered in 30-06. They weren't conversions. And what had happened was we had Remington or Winchester had made the run for the P14s and had gone over there, and we weren't in the war yet. And our battle rifle was the 03 Springfield. And then we're gearing up, we're going to war, and they didn't have enough dies and stuff to make the Springfields, but we did have those P14s. And so they just changed the chambering from 303 to 30-06 and just manufactured from the ground up. So if it was a P17, it was a 30-06 World War I, like you're saying. And if it was in 303, it was a P14. And the gun that Sergeant York used was actually a P17. His unit wasn't issued 03s. So. Chef, one of the best things I've heard you say is there isn't such a thing as survival situation, only inconvenient camping. Correct. If you have training and a little bit of gear, it's inconvenient camping. Yeah, I may get wet. Yeah, I'm going to be a little cold. Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit hungry. Yeah, I'm going to have to walk out of here. It's inconvenient, but it's not truly life-threatening. Survival situation is when you go off and the vehicle tumbles down the mountain and nobody knows you're gone, and you're crawling out of that car with no supplies, with 2 broke legs and a dislocated shoulder. That's a survival situation, But if you got gear and you're going out here, it's just inconvenient camping. Adaptability. Remember what Nesmont said. He who carries his stuff and is prepared to take care of himself in all temperatures, all times, and all climes is the freest man in the world. You look back at a lot of the combat vets of World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, where they told you, start walking at 30 miles that way is where we're going. There weren't no trucks. You're walking. And you had to just stop along the way and sleep when you could and get up and walk the rest of the time. Those guys traveled, and lived out of a little bitty nothing bag. And, along the way, they'd get a big meal every so often. And they'd get to refill their canteens every so often, and there would be supplies spread out, but they just had to do the actual work. We're kind of spoiled. We think today, you would never have convinced the generals of the world in 1899 that their troops would not walk everywhere, that they would ride on vehicles or trains. Because in that day, it was walk, horses, wagons, or trains. That was the only way they got anywhere. And now you can fly and never have to do any of that stuff. So vehicles, those guys lived out of the pack. And so because of that, I doubt very, very little shook them up. It's raining. Okay. It's snowing. It's below zero. Okay. Big E's Knives. Where do you get your pictures for your logos? You mean my thumbnails for my videos? I've got to playing around with an AI program, and I figured out how to get it to generate those. This is the one on this one is the first time I've ever used one for this, but I've got to playing around with it, and I'm just an old dog learning new tricks. I figured out how to generate them. It helps the algorithm pick it up because it's not just a picture of me, and because of that, it's something that it helps the videos spread further out for the audience. Mike B. Hello, Blackie. How are the books going? They're kind of stalled right now. I haven't given up, but with launching these new products in these last couple of months, where I brought out the Weehawk, the Sparrowhawk, now the Red Hawk, and the whole spring was spent me running around. I had planned for this part of the summer to be working on the book, and I have picked up and edited a couple of chapters, but I'm not quite done. It's a work in progress. I have not given up. That is correct, Shane. That's what he was using whenever he shot. True. Battle route. You know, the survival was making it out of the car. The rest is just extra inconvenient camping. Yeah, that's true. Gray Wolf, how many people carried a water bottle? Depending on where you were. I live in the Amazon of North America. In Alabama, you cannot go 5 miles without crossing water. Look at a map of the rivers and streams of Alabama. It's like a brain scan. It's just everywhere. So I can go without a water bottle. But you go, 10 hours to the west, especially you get out in Texas, you better have a water bottle. It's just where you're at and what the sources are available. I always carried canteens. Summertime I carried two because I had to boil water back in them days. And when canteen A got about 3/4 of the way done, I started hunting that water source and shift over to my other canteen. And when I found that water source, I would take my canteen cup, scoop it up, get a fire going, bring it to a boil. Once it was cool enough to put in the canteen, I would fill that canteen to the top, turn it upside down, let the boiling water run around the threads a second, and turn it back, screw the lid loose so it could let a little steam out. And then I would drink as much of that other canteen as I could stand. Fill me up. Now my belly is my canteen. And then boil water again to refill that second canteen to the top. Then let everything cool off, put it on, and head out. It took an hour to refill your canteens at least. And then you had warm, hot water, unless you stop them for the night where you could stick them in the stream and leave the neck above the water and let it cool down. So the Grail is 10 times better. I had somebody send me something while we're thinking about it. I just got it tonight and hadn't even tried this yet. And it was this gentleman sent me a kit that he'd got somewhere, and it's like an improved Stanley 2-cup cook set. Everybody knows about, remember the tall, skinny one. Well, this one comes with 2 much bigger coffee cups and a bigger boiler. And 750 milliliter or 3 full cups. It's got a rebated thing on it. And that fits in there. She got the 2. But my question was, yeah, it fits the Grail. Now, what you do is I don't know if I can do it right now. I'll have to play with it. But what you do is you unhook this handle, flip it around so it folds down, And boy, thing, there we go. I can just stand it up like that and hold it. Probably make me a carrier for that, because I like it. It's a bigger diameter, be easier to get down in there and get food out of it than the other one. The other one was good, but it was so tall, and you had to have a long spoon. And it's got an improved top on it, little silicone thing on it, and then it's got drain holes. I can do this right. It's got drain holes and a vent hole. It's a nice big one. Like I said, I just got it tonight. I haven't had a chance to do anything with it, so that I think would be an improvement for this. I was using the old tall Stanley for a cook bottle to go with this, but you know, this right here depends on how hard it is to get that handle off there. If I can pop that handle out and turn it the other way around, like use the force, Blackie. Turn around, put that end in. Now put that one in. Aha. Now works fine like that, and then it'll fold down out of the way like that. So now I can put the grail into it. You take the lid and put it underneath in the carrier, and then sit that in there. Ha ha. I'll do a video. I'll play with this. I'll make me a little carrier for that, because I carry a canteen now and a grail. The great advantage to this is, yes, these things are expensive, guys. I ain't gonna lie to you, but here's what it saves me. I come up to that cool stream where it's 100 degrees out here, man, and that water is like 50-something degrees. It's coming right out of the ground. It's nice and cold. I don't want to boil it and heat it up. I can take this, scoop it right out of that stream, filter it, fill my canteen full of cold water, refill this, filter it, chug-a-lug all the water I want, refill this, and press the lid in, and have cool water here, cool water in the canteen, cool water in me, and I'm moving. I can do all of that in 10 minutes as opposed to an hour the other way. So yeah, that saves me time and a whole lot of effort. That's about the right size to me to a bush pot for a one-person bush pot. So I'll be experimenting with that, just sharing that with you. Okay, it's 1:42. We're probably going to call it quits for the night, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank you so much for all the questions. I really look forward to this every year, every day. Waiting for my Thursday so I can sit and talk with you guys. It means a lot to me to be able to spend time with you guys. I really mean that. And I posted a video yesterday, and I'll be posting another video tomorrow. And then I'm probably going to be doing another ground pounder this weekend, because a lot of people in the world right now want me to can you start showing some of that ground pounding stuff again? So I'm going back and kind of redoing some of the ground pounder series. And I've got to dig out and find some of my gear so I want to do a full layout of what I carried back in the day, of the web belt, the ammo pouches, the 2 butt packs with the poncho tent in the middle of it, where it was a very streamlined, sleek kit to wear on you, where you had your water, you had your food, you had everything on you. And the way I camped when I was a teenager up until my mid-20s. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to see if I can gather all that up and hopefully do it this Sunday, if not sooner. But we shall see. Well, guys, thank you very much. Have a great night. God bless every one of you. Be safe, and I hope to see you next week. Till next time, see ya.